We're gonna be doing one thing, and one thing only. Killing Nazis.
There haven't been many games that have forced me to put down the controller, pace back and forth a few times, and verbally exclaim, wow. Wolfenstein II: The New Colossus is one of those games. What MachineGames has brought to the table this time around is not only a stellar and surprisingly difficult first-person shooter, but a prime demonstration of how to follow up on a beloved title and in many respects, exceed it. My name is Noah Friskop, and welcome to GridlifeDigest.com's review of Wolfenstein II: The New Colossus. Light spoilers ahead. During Bethesda's E3 2017 showcase, I anxiously awaited the announcement of the sequel to Wolfenstein: The New Order and was not disappointed. Acting as the end cap to the show, the reveal trailer highlighted the prospect of BJ Blazkowicz and his band of allies taking the fight to the United States in order to spark a revolution in a country that had all but given in to their Nazi oppressors. Then the marketing campaign began. And let me say, I don't think I've ever seen a better marketing campaign for a game prior to this. It not only emphasized what the game itself was about, but also acted as a poignant commentary on the state of our country now, despite the game itself barely touching on modern topics. Using hashtags such as #NoMoreNazis, many alt-right people were deeply offended by these ads, and I loved every second of it. I hope Bethesda and other publishers show backbone like this more frequently in the future, although I know there aren't a lot of games with as much potentially relevant social context as Wolfenstein.
Make America Nazi free again, or not my America. Basically, it sounds like, okay, are we talking about Trump here?
No, we're talking about Nazis.
You're kind of poking the hornet's nest here.
Maybe a little bit, but the hornet's nest is full of Nazis, so fuck those guys. Like, I'll poke a Nazi hornet's nest.
Let's start with the gameplay. Unlike the New Order, which featured a lengthy introduction stage prior to taking part in the game proper, the New Colossus thrusts you right into the thick of it. Wolfenstein II is direct a sequel as can be, taking place in the Third Reich-dominated 1960s, mere moments after we last saw BJ Blazkowicz post his showdown with Death's Head. After a 5-month-long coma, BJ is forced to immediately begin slaying Nazis from the confines of a wheelchair. Oh, and he and his lover Anya have twins on the way. The wheelchair segment felt surprisingly fun and intuitive, with stairs being our hero's worst enemy, and part of me wished it lasted longer. While it might deviate from the standard shooter formula of this generation and last, the fusion of 1990s FPS design philosophy with the modern emphasis on story and set pieces is once again executed beautifully here. The gunplay feels as ferocious and punchy as you remember. However, the iron sights on most of the newly redesigned weapons feel almost useless. I can count on my fingers how many times I use ADS in the middle of a fight with real consequence. The laser craftwork from the New Order makes a return, however it is streamlined as it no longer requires the player to manually trace an outline, but instead opts to completely melt away select surfaces in spectacular fashion. The rest of BJ's arsenal remains largely the same, with the notable exception of the AR marksman sniper rifle being absent, although I rarely missed it. Often opting for the devastating assault rifle shotgun combo. Replacing the knife as BJ's default melee weapon is a brutal hatchet, which you can tell the animators at MachineGames had a ton of fun brainstorming with just how many ways you can kill a Nazi with said hatchet. In addition to the plethora of guns you carry with you, there are also several new heavy mounted weapons, my favorite being the heavy machine gun. All the weapons at your disposal feel great to use and can be upgraded with special collectibles found throughout the missions that turn an already great arsenal into a collection of varied and greatly effective tools of Nazi slaughter, including silencers, extended magazines, nailgun bullets, scopes, and more. The weapons aren't the only things being upgraded though. BJ himself has various skill trees that, like in the New Order, upgrade as you perform certain tasks. This time around, I found these skills to feel much more natural to obtain and rewarded your preferred playstyle instead of making you out of your way to unlock a certain desired upgrade. This level of choice doesn't always carry over to the missions themselves, however. While the team emphasized in interviews that they wanted players to be able to tackle encounters their way, I rarely felt that stealth was a viable option for long. Officers, that are responsible for calling in reinforcements upon BJ being spotted, are often placed on the far end of numerous enemies, many of which cannot be stealth killed silently. While it is certainly possible, I found the aforementioned combo of assault rifle and shotgun to be a much more effective method of tackling challenges. Speaking of challenges, this game is hard. I started the game on the Do or Die difficulty, the fourth highest of the main 6 difficulty levels, and the 7th, Mein Leben, unlocks after rolling credits on any of the others. After clearing a little over half of the main campaign, I had to turn it down to bring them on difficulty, as the spikes became simply too much to be enjoyable. I love a challenging action game, but some of the encounters felt outright unfair on the higher difficulties. The Doberman Kampfhunds in particular seem to come out of nowhere sometimes. Don't feel ashamed if you were forced to turn it down. Do whatever is most fun. The Kreisau circles various missions to cripple the right, taking you across many locations throughout the United States, including a nuclear devastated New York City, which would feel right at home in a Metro game, Nazi and KKK-occupied Roswell, New Mexico, and others. After reaching a certain point in the story, you are given full reign to return to the locations you have previously visited and take part in assassination contracts decoded by collecting Enigma cards from the various Nazi officers that you kill. These missions are surprisingly difficult, maybe not so surprising, and can give the game some legs once the credits have rolled. The game is brimming with detail and finesse. It is obvious from the outset that the team can take full advantage of the current generation of hardware by not being tethered down by the last. I played on PlayStation 4, but it is without saying that the best place to play the new Colossus is on PC. Most of the mechanical issues would be remedied if I was playing on keyboard and mouse. Grabbing health and ammo pickups can be a pain while using the controller, but luckily a new feature was added that allows you to grab ammo and shields automatically. More here than in the previous game, it always feels like you're controlling a person rather than a pair of admittedly well-animated arms. BJ moves and adjusts his weapons realistically depending on what is in front of him, and his legs are always fully visible. It might seem small in the big picture, but for me it greatly enhanced immersion and should be a staple of first-person titles. From a technical standpoint, I only experienced a couple visual bugs. I did have a few issues whenever I would try to jump into air ducts from above, with BJ getting stuck on seemingly nothing, but it was always resolved quickly enough. Next up is story and presentation. The narrative of the new Colossus is what separates the game from an extremely solid shooter to, in my opinion, a legitimate Game of the Year contender. I refuse to spoil significant plot points, as I simply could not do them justice, but the story goes places that I never would have expected from this genre, even after the first game. How on earth MachineGames managed to make BJ Blazkowicz, a once devoid of any real personality besides some exaggerated facial expressions, avatar on the bottom of your screen in Wolfenstein 3D, a compelling and fleshed out protagonist is a testament to their writing and willingness to tackle the uncomfortable and unfortunate realities that plagued his life. Like the New Order, Colossus skates the line of the absolutely obscene, ridiculous, hilarious, and ultra-violent with the touching, heartfelt, dark, and hopeful. With such effortless execution, I truly do not understand how it doesn't all collapse in on itself. Watching Nazis getting hilariously eviscerated over and over again while receiving casual exposition lets you know right off the bat that what you signed up for is something special. BJ's internal monologues, which should be melodramatic and monotonous, are never such, and are delivered with conviction and larger-than-life weight. The cast of supporting characters are also intentionally dissimilar, but mesh together as an ensemble naturally with realistic friction and necessary cooperation. Grace in particular might be one of the best characters in a shooter, period. I can somewhat see why MachineGames separates themselves from defining their take on Wolfenstein as strictly an FPS, because the presentation is so much better than their contemporaries despite their gameplay consisting mostly of Nazi murder. The cutscenes are very well directed, the voice work is astonishingly good at times, and the tone manages to stay varied while never once feeling contradictory despite itself. I haven't felt this strongly about a game emotionally since The Last of Us. There isn't just one moment in the roughly 12-ish hours I spent with the game that blew me away. Not only are these moments shocking, but they by some means all feel earned. It has teeth. Nothing that happens, no matter how outlandish, which it must be as a Wolfenstein game, feels out of touch with the world that has been built, and it is wonderful. Unfortunately, the conclusion goes full Halo 2, and who knows how long we'll have to wait for a resolution. Mick Gordon, who in my opinion has risen up right next to the best of the best in gaming composition, has once again knocked it out of the park. Almost every track, more so than in the New Order, accentuates the gameplay and makes the action feel ever more visceral with each encounter. His superb work on last year's Doom reboot and Prey from earlier this year has cemented him as a gaming music great, and I hope to hear much more of his work in the coming years. Here at Gridlife Digest, we have decided that number scores are dumb, so for a final verdict, I will say this. If you enjoy lengthy, story-driven action games, you can't sleep on Wolfenstein II: The New Colossus. Even if you just have a cursory knowledge of shooters but want to get sucked into a good story, I cannot recommend this game enough. I don't know if I can place it higher than The New Order, I'm still deliberating that, but I can say outright that the high points of Colossus are a head above its predecessor. And yes, I do recommend playing The New Order and the Old Blood before diving into 2. There is a cursory summary provided in the game's intro, but it does not do the previous game justice. While I do believe the game is worth full price, be warned that it does not, luckily, contain any type of multiplayer, so wait for a sale if you're strapped for cash. Thank you so much for watching or reading this inaugural Gridlife Game review. This probably won't be a regular thing on this channel, but for the titles I'm very passionate about, I want to dive into what makes them great. As of right now, the next one I want to do is the PS4 port of Okami coming in December to see if it's as good as I remember it being.